we are flooded by clothes from the global north. Second-hand clothes that people in richer countries throw away and that are shipped to Uganda and sold here for dirt cheap. It's impossible to compete against second-hand clothes here. Beyond that, second-hand clothes always end up at landfill. At some point, because people here have also started over-consuming fast fashion, clothes are being thrown away at a much higher pace. What happens to these clothes? They're not in your landfills in the global north, they're in our landfills in the global south. Your consumption is our problem.
Here in Accra, Ghana sees 15 million secondhand garments flowing through it every single week, and 40% leave as waste. It's important to understand that the 40% that leaves as waste is not leaving as waste because it's unwearable in the most basic of senses. It's leaving as waste because it's so low value that the retailers here are going into debt and they can no longer take the financial hit on keeping that object around. And so what we need to understand is that if we don't produce less, but more durable and more high quality, more high value products, people cannot make a living recirculating those things.
Perhaps they do not know once you are in your apartment and you give off your youth clothing, you may think it's going for charity work or it's going, but some of them are beyond use. You cannot use them for any other thing. And then the businessmen, the middlemen over there who team up with our colleagues, they package these things and bring them to us instead of taking them to the waste incineration sites for them to be properly dealt with.
We need to make clothing valuable again. Clothing has lost all value. It's seen as being cheaper than a coffee from Starbucks. So until we get past that, until everyone redefines the relationship with fashion and starts to believe that clothing has value again, we won't be able to solve the waste at this stage.
We have what we call extended producer responsibility. So right from the manufacturer, I think there should be some percentage of cost that should be slapped on the product, so that wherever the final destination of that product should be, the government should be able to track and then get these monies released for the disposal of such items. Whenever the used clothing degrades to a certain minimum standard, they shouldn't what we call export them to us. They should take care of them with their higher level of infrastructure that they have, and then we can maintain the market all right, but with some standards, so that at least at the end of the day it will relieve us of the landfill, because there's no more land.
The first and foremost, we need extended producer responsibility policies for textiles that include ecological reparations for communities here in the global south that have carried the burden of fashion's linear oversupplied economy for decades. We need to ensure that there are avenues for organizations like ours, the OR Foundation, and communities like Contamanto here in Accra to access funding from EPR policies. Because if the clothing that is being collected is going to continue to be exported to communities like Contamanto as a form of quote-unquote waste management, then the money that is being collected to manage that waste needs to travel with the clothing to ensure that the clothing that ends up here in Ghana can actually be sustainably recirculated, and so that communities here can catalyze their own local circular textiles economies. Second, we need to regulate what we mean by recycling. The secondhand clothing trade is not recycling. We need to educate consumers to understand the nuances of this global trade in textiles, and we need to be very careful about oversimplifying this message, because part of the problem is that brands want to leapfrog all other aspects of the circular economy and go straight to recycling, fiber to fiber recycling, which is not the most sustainable thing that we can do.
So what can we do? Maybe there is a future in recycling. Maybe if you're interested in working with us, if you're interested in investing in our country, maybe you can develop recycling plants here. Maybe we can educate people about textile and fiber. Maybe we can leapfrog this entire process of production and actually create something very circular here. Because we've learned from the global north that their systems are not working. We don't want the same systems to be imported to our country. The truth is, we're already doing the work. We are already recycling. We are already upcycling. But people are not making steady incomes from the kind of work they're doing. So why don't we borrow? Why don't we enrich them? Why don't we learn from them? Why don't we create better jobs using the skills they already have in a more industrial manner? We need policymakers. We need politicians. We need laws. Designers can no longer act in silo. Clothing producers can no longer do this on their own. The first thing the global north can do is to start listening to the voices of those who are marginalized and affected most in the global south.